HDC. I'd like to welcome you all to our Monday morning breakfast talks. These talks are part of our ongoing programs to try to bring people from the agency, from city agencies and other experts here to address specific concerns and questions that people may have about preservation. In the past, we've been lucky enough to have the buildings commissioner visit us, the president of the EDC. We've also had people coming to talk about fundraising, etc., etc. I'm not making any sense, am I? And this is only my second vodka. Anyway, it's my pleasure, you all know why you're here, so it's my pleasure to introduce Mark Silberman, who will be here addressing the rules, the proposed rules changes. These are on your seats. You have read them now, I hope, if you have not read them before. And Mark is General Counsel of Landmark, of the Landmarks Preservation Commission. He has been with LPC since 96?
95.
So, Mark.
Carroll has emailed me, she's on today. So Sarah, as you know, is the Director of Preservation, so she's going to also be here to help talk about the rules. But so just as a brief introduction before we get into the rules, and I don't know, we can go through them, we can open them up for questions right away. It really depends on what people want to do. But let's just talk about what we're trying to do here first, so we put it all in context, and then it's just a few introduction. So rules, every agency has rules. The rules are there for two reasons. Oh, we can't hear. Oh, sorry. Okay. So rules serve two purposes. One is to make sure that the government, agents aren't withholding something from people that you're entitled to, and it also, the flip side of it tells everybody if you do X, Y, and Z, you're entitled to a permit of some kind or another. So there's there's sort of a public information component to it as well. So for example, if you want to, for the commission, if you want to repoint your building, and you can show us, you're going to use mortar X, and you're going to use this kind of, you're going to rake out the old mortar this way, and you're going to do it, put this color mortar in, you're entitled to a permit. And so the function of that also helps in terms of moving the process, applications through the system faster. And the original Landmarks Law anticipated this. The original Landmarks Law has a certificate of appropriateness, which requires a public hearing, and has certificates of no effect, and a permit for minor work that doesn't. And public hearings are things that, as you know, most of you participated in them, add an extra 6 or 7 weeks to a process and quite a bit more money to a process in terms of the kind of boards and presentations you need to make. So from a sort of a government efficiency, a good government, and I would argue very importantly, pro-preservation standpoint, the rules allow the average homeowner to get approvals as quickly as possible so they can do their work. And so the permit and the rules, by definition, are approving work that either has no effect on significant architectural features, is minor work as defined by the commission, and that also has no effect. Not only is it minor, but it has no effect. Okay? Or that the commission has otherwise found always to be appropriate. Okay, so those are kind of what the rules are designed to do. And again, most of you know this, but I'll just repeat it because it's worth mentioning. We process 10,000 permit applications a year. Now, in comparison, Chicago processes 4,000. Okay? 95% of what we do is approved by the staff right now, currently. Okay? That's only 5% of the things go to the commission. And as you know, we have full hearings pretty much every Tuesday. So it's very important to be a volunteer commissioner. So we can't add more hearings. We already require about 15% of the work week to be volunteered by the commissioners to the commission. And that doesn't include site visits and other things. That's just the 3 Tuesdays a month they need to show up and be at the commission. So rules really do function as a way to make efficient use of the commissioner's time. So they are doing the things that are the most important. It allows the staff to do things that are by definition have no effect or otherwise appropriate. But there's a dynamic that happens between the two that I want to talk about, because these rules that you're looking at or under consideration now, a lot of them reflect this dynamic, to use a fancy word, this dialectic between what the commissioners do and what we do. So for example, rules by definition will always say somewhere in them, and has no effect on protected architectural features. That's a catch-all, right? And what happens at the hearings, you see Sarah's here, and what happens, get some coffee, Sarah. So what happens at the hearings, okay, is the commissioners over time, oftentimes reacting to testimony that you all are giving them over time, sort of start evolving. And so for the good examples of this are rear yard and rooftop additions, changes that are reflected in these rules. Okay? There's also some new stuff here, but changes reflected in these rules. So for example, over time, the commissioners have looked at rooftop additions, which used to have a very simple approval process. Couldn't be visible, no protected architectural features could be affected. And if you did that, you were entitled to rooftop addition. Didn't matter how big. Didn't matter if it came all the way to the rear wall. Okay? Over time, the commissioners started, I'd say over the last 7 or 8 years, maybe the commissioners started saying, something, visibility is not the only thing that counts here. There's a certain maximum volume that we think can be put on top of a building and keep the building sort of what it is, a small building with a rooftop addition, And we want to always be able to read the original volume of the building. So the commissioners, and all these public hearings where rooftop additions were visible, for example, and they were brought forward, the commissioner said we want it set back from the rear facade because we want to protect that original volume. Well, 5 years ago, the staff all got together and said, look, these are things that the commissioners have said that are important things. These are significant architectural features, the volume, the setback. So we are going to apply those to staff level approvals for rooftop additions. So nowhere in the rules did it say that. So if you're an applicant, again, going back to that function of rules as being something that tells an applicant, if you do X, Y, and Z, you are entitled to something. They would come and they'd say, well, I'm doing X, Y, and Z. You can't see my 3-story rooftop addition. And we would say, I'm sorry, these rules have been interpreted now to mean you cannot put a 3-story rooftop addition. That has to go to the commission for a hearing. So we imported these evolving standards, again, coming from a lot, not only from the commissioners' sort of views, but also testimony from a lot of neighborhood groups, the preservation groups and neighbors.